So why did men stop wearing the flat top? When you hear the words flat top, what is conjured up in your mind? Do you think of university American men in the 60s sporting that very distinctive flat across the top, tight on the sides? Or are you thinking more 1980s? A little longer, but nonetheless a flat top, worn by the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, and even Grace Jones. Or does your mind go to the military? You think of Marines wearing their high and tights. Or perhaps do you think of boys in the aughts sporting little crew cuts, probably given to them by their mothers? For the past 60 years, men in America, and sometimes women, have been sporting this very distinctive haircut, and we're in a period now where no one seems to be wearing the flat top. What is a flat top? Flat top is when you push the hair up in the front, usually held in place with gels or waxes, and it is cut straight across the top. It can be incredibly short or angled up. It can be flat or even angled down slightly, but nonetheless it creates a very boxy kind of look. Can sometimes be tapered, can sometimes go wider, and it depends on which generation you're in. If you're in the 60s, it tends to be narrower and shorter. In the 80s, it tends to flare out and get a little longer on the top, but nonetheless, they are all similarly cut. Typically a high fade on the sides, a high taper on the back, and flat across the top. Sometimes using special combs to get that flat look, very crisp. So why did men stop wearing the flat top? You would think with the resurgence of barber culture that we have had in the past dozen or 15 years, that you would see more flat tops. And that's actually the time period where they have actually stopped, with the exception of possibly young boys, schoolboys, high school boys getting a flat top for a small period in the aughts. There was a time in the 60s where guys were getting their hair cut every 2 to 3 weeks and actually going to the barbershop to get a flat top. I think of my own dad. He used to go in the summertime every 2 or 3 weeks to get a haircut to maintain. He wore a flat top in the summertime. So you would think with barbershops now that you would see more different haircuts, but we haven't been seeing that. And it's kind of unforgiving if you want to maintain that particular look. When it starts to grow in or when it starts to get uneven on the top, it can be noticeable within 3 weeks, and so it requires you to go to the barbershop possibly more. I've noticed that there are seemingly less barbershops, even though barbershop culture has become more popular. When I moved into my particular neighborhood back in the 80s and 90s, there were 4 barbershops within 2 blocks of my house. They were all manned by older gentlemen at the time, probably in their 60s, all sporting that distinctive short sleeve lab coat in a way. You could run into any of these barbershops and get your $6 or $8 haircut, and it doesn't seem to be the case today. Yes, the barbershops are bigger. These old school barbershops had 1 or 2 chairs. There's usually a sole proprietor. Today's barbershops tend to have more chairs, more people, but the prices tend to be higher. Guys are now spending $30, $40, $50 on a haircut. So if you're going to go to the barbershop every 2 to 3 weeks to maintain a haircut, I think it might be cost prohibitive for a lot of guys to be getting that kind of haircut. That's one of the reasons I think they have actually fallen out of favor, is the amount of maintenance that it takes to do that kind of haircut. I am not throwing barbers under the bus. I am not begrudging them a living, but the price of a haircut proportionally has gone up to where it was, say, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Some people think that you have to have a very distinctive head shape or that you have to have a typical hairline, a good hairline, and I actually think that is not the case. There were tons of guys wearing flat tops in the 60s, say from like 1963 to about 1968. And most men in business, most men in blue-collar workers jobs were sporting barbershop haircuts, and a lot of them tended to be really short before hair got longer in the late 60s and in the 70s. You had a lot of different shaped heads wearing a flat top, wearing crew cuts, wearing buzz cuts, wearing really short barbershop haircuts. And so I don't think you can say that you have, it takes a certain shaped head to wear a flat top. Some people say it's about the hairline, that you have to have a really good, strong hairline. I think you can have any hairline. You actually see that in military. You see a lot of guys who have all different hairlines represented in a flat top. And if you think of an actors, say like Ed Harris, going back to Apollo 13, he has a very distinctive hairline, Norwood 3 or 4, really receded temples, but yet rocks a flat top and looks fantastic. So I encourage you guys, if that's you, if you've been thinking that, I'd like you to reconsider that. Another reason why I think some guys think about not getting a flat top is that maintenance issue, but it also might have to do with growing out a flat top. If I have to get a haircut that needs cut every 2 to 3 weeks, is that going to be impossible to grow out? I actually think it's a pretty easy haircut to grow out, to get back to more of a conventional haircut. If you get a really short crew cut, that university cut from the 60s, you kind of let that grow into the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the 80s. You could probably wait 2 months to get a haircut. At that point, start cutting it shorter on the sides, getting a low taper, and then you start parting the hair, or you start wearing the hair down, and voila, you have a grown-in haircut. So I think you can't use that for a reason not to get a flat top. Why else have they fallen out of favor? I'm going to actually say it comes down to a particular guy. Yes, you know him. Here he is. Yes, the guy sporting the broccoli haircut, the llama haircut, whatever you want to call it, the big poofy front on a haircut, seemed to come out of the aughts, guys who were wearing their hair tighter, crew cutted, and got really long, and it got really bushy. The broccoli works particularly well if you have curly hair, but there are lots of guys doing pretty long textured fringes with straighter hair. I think that this haircut actually is possibly our version of the crew cut in terms of its extremeness. If you look at these kind of haircuts, they have really short sides, sometimes a starburst taper around the sides, but a lot of them are really tight, medium fades on the side, really short, tight tapers in the back. And the really only difference about them is the mop of hair that you have in the front. It's really easy to correct the broccoli haircut. Yeah, I'm sounding negative about this haircut. I actually think it's played out. It's been around for a while. If I see one more version of this haircut on a barbershop video, I think I'm gonna scream. I think you can fix that by just lobbing off the front and getting more of a conventional haircut or going for the flat top. Those are my reasons why I think the flat top has gone away. I think it's time for a resurgence of the flat top. You can start with those broccoli guys, cutting that mop off the top and sporting a more conventional haircut. I've actually had lots of experience myself with wearing a flat top. Just post-college, I have worn a flat top every 4 or 5 years, typically in the summertime, and I'm actually considering doing one now in preparation for the summertime. So maybe we should do a video on me getting a flat top. You know, I can actually, stand behind my words suggesting that the flat top might be where it's at this summer. I'm actually predicting that the flat top might see resurgence if enough of you out there get buzzing. So come on, you want to join me? Let's get flat tops this summer. Until we meet again.